Hey everyone, welcome to Rivers Art Colors. My name is Nick Rivers, and today I will be coloring the Scarlet Witch in Photoshop CS5. Now, this isn't necessarily the first time I've drawn Scarlet Witch, hence why I wanted to do something a little bit different this time around. If you're on DeviantArt and you've checked out my page, Revolution, it's Rivolution. If you check that out, you can see one of the older versions of Wanda that I did, where I did kind of a little bit more of the classic costume, the whole bathing suit costume with the cape. Um, this time I wanted to do something a little bit more. I want to kind of stay away from that and give her a bit more of a conservative costume. Um, I don't know, just a little bit more classy costume, I guess. I'm starting to, a little bit of skin and all that's okay, but it honestly it just doesn't make sense on certain characters, and you know, I I guess I find it a little bit more of a artistic challenge to make a character sexy without having to, you know, have everything showing. Which I hope I accomplished with this. Um, just kind of instead of one of the things I'm doing right here is like instead of just keeping the costume one flat kind of maroon color, I want to break up the design a little bit. Um, and it's also kind of a callback to her original costume. It wasn't just if you look at her when she first appeared with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, she kind of had like a two tone kind of red pink, like I think she had like a pink underbody suit on, and then like had kind of like the red bustier and the red cape and tiara. So it kind of, even though the line art is different, even though the design is different, I think it's kind of a callback to that look. I was very tempted to initially to kind of make her look a little bit more like the Avengers Wanda. I really like that look. I really dug that kind of street look that she had in the movie. But I don't know. I just have too much fun drawing that tiara, so that kind of dictated the rest of the line art for me on this. But um, with the flats down, I can get ready to render. So once again, I create a new layer on top of the layer that I want to have it drop down onto, which in this case is the flat layer that I use for the skin. And in between my new layer and that bottom layer, I do an option click in between those, and that kind of uses that bottom layer as a mask. Um, so it keeps everything in those boundaries. And with this, I typically use my soft airbrush tool to start figuring out my light sources and hence figuring out my midtones for this. Since I'm kind of using that flat as the as my shadow layer, but I'm sure I'll go back in and maybe add an extra little shadow. With this, I'm using a combination of for the highlights here. I'm using a combination of um, my solid brush and my airbrush, and the eraser tool too. Um, just kind of typically just use my wacom pen to make my brush stroke in the direction of the light that I want it to go into, and and then I'll use the eraser to taper off sections so it kind of gets that fade in, fade out look. Now this coloring process on this particular drawing was pretty quick. I want to say it was maybe an hour and a half. obviously the video sped up, so you don't have to see me meander along with this. But usually when I'm coloring something, it's not doesn't come across that quickly. This is an exception because there's not really anything much to do about the background, and again, it's not a whole lot of color separation, so I was able to get this done fairly quickly. But most of the time, I mean, rendering something out could be a 2-day process, just depending on how involved the drawing is. You know, if you got multiple characters, if you've got a complicated background, you know, I guess basically what I'm trying to say is not always does a drawing come together just within, you know, a few hours rendered. And if it's something that's really important, I like to put a good amount of consideration in how I want the colors to look. One other thing I wanted to point out here, if you haven't already noticed, that this is called Rivers Art Colors and not Rivers Art Draws. I think what I'll be doing from now on is alternating the episodes between line art segments and color segments. So if you'd rather see me just do mostly line art segments, or rather see me throw up some of these coloring segments, let me know, and I'll try to focus on one or the other. But I think for now I'll probably just alternate the two. And I don't know. I'd like to be able to get to the point where I can give you guys maybe 2 videos a week. But well, still pretty new here, so we'll start off with 1 video a week. So next week I should be doing the line art on something. What it is, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. As usual, if there's any character that you'd like to see for a Rivers Art Draws segment, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to make that a priority. It can be any type of character. Again, it can be from, you know, a comic book, Marvel, DC. It could be from anything, any kind of comic book, any kind of movie, TV show, animation. Once again, I gotta throw in the disclaimer that I'm not the greatest at likenesses. So, you know, if you want me to draw your neighbor down the street, it's probably gonna make for not the most interesting video. But anyhow, back to the coloring here. I'm getting a little bit closer to being done. For me, whether I'm doing line art or whether I'm doing rendering, the final stretch is always the toughest, because by this time I kind of know how everything is going to turn out at this point. There's very few surprises for me at this point. But you know, I go through with it and finish it because, you know, what good does a bunch of unfinished artwork lying around do? It does no one any good. Well, maybe it does me a little good. I get some practice out of it. But you guys don't get anything out of it, so. Anyway, I don't know what tangent I was going on there, but let's maybe get back to the coloring here. Gonna add some extra shadows in there in between the folds. Make those folds pop out a little bit more. Give it a little bit more depth. And you know, I try to kind of go by the have a as far as rendering goes, I want there to be almost a clear separation of shadow, mid-tone, highlight. I want those I want to be able to point those out to anybody on any of my drawings. I mean, you can go pretty nuts when it comes to rendering. You can render the hell out of it. You can add so many different, you know, tones in between those midtones and highlights, and where I mean, you could really get lost in it. But I think at least keeping those three things help it out. Um, at least having those three distinctions between mid-tone, highlight, shadow um, makes it feel complete to me. And again, certain textures like this texture right here. When I was drawing it, I pictured it being a, um, a more shinier surface. So I'm going in and putting some extra highlight in there to make it stand out. Now, if you look to your left, where my toolbar is at, you can see me going back and forth quite a bit between three tools: the brush tool, the eraser tool, and the rotate tool. And if you're using a Mac on your keyboard, it would be B for brush tool, R for rotate, and E for eraser. I use that quite a bit in conjunction while I'm laying my brush strokes down. The brush tool, of course, for the brush, and then the erase tool again to kind of fade those tips away, and then the rotate tool to just get a better vantage point while I'm using my tablet. Again, I've used a very small Wacom tablet, so instead of moving my arm and my wrist all around the place, just use the rotate tool to move my canvas. Also, a little off topic, but relevant to these videos that I'm uploading for you guys. I know that there's an audio issue. There's a low humming sound. I am working on trying to figure that out. I record with a internal microphone here on my laptop, so what you're the whirling you hear in the background is essentially my hard drive, and this is a kind of a older laptop that I'm working on that needs some more RAM pretty quickly. Hopefully that will rectify the issue. So just bear with me a little bit. Bear with that low humming sound just a little bit. Hopefully I will have that fixed here in future episodes. Now, right here is a good example of how sometimes in the excitement to finish the inks on something, you end up leaving out some details. And so I'll just simply go back up to my inks folder in under my layers and add the missing lines there, the indicator lines for her teeth. So she looks a little bit more like she's clenching her teeth together, and probably go in and fix up some of the lines that are crossing over too much on her hair and her shoulder there too a little later. But now I'm going to go ahead and get to her hex energy signatures, and this was the only part that I kind of wasn't really 100% sure of how I wanted it to look, so played around with it a little bit, just trying some different effects out. Right now I've got just a simple layer effect over the line artwork for the hex bolt thingies. I put a glow on that, and now I'm just kind of messing around with some different colors, and just kind of playing around. I think I probably spent a little more time than I should have figuring out what I wanted these little hex bolts to look like, because I mean, every version in the comics that you look, and every version in the cartoons, and in different versions of Scarlet Witch, they look different, so there's some room for artistic license. Right here I did a kind of a yellow ball with some purple energy swirls, and turned that layer under my layer options, made it an overlay to kind of give it a different effect. and erased out the center, and which you'll see here in a moment. But yeah, well, once that's done, you know, just playing with different effects, overlay, multiply, just kind of going through the gambit of different effects, just to see if I can nail what I might have had in mind. But yeah, once that's taken care of, I'll go in and add some rim lighting on her from the light being caused from the hex bolts onto her costume and on her face. But that's pretty much it. Again, guys, if there's anything that you'd like to see me draw, leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like, share, subscribe button. Hopefully it has been informative for you. If not informative, maybe a little bit entertaining. And here we're getting to the finishing little touches right here. I'll post this video, or I mean, not the video, I'll post the artwork on my Twitter page and on my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/riversart. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, that will be at NickRiv, NickRiv. And I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/RiverInc. And I think we can call that a wrap for this episode of Rivers Art Colors. Here she is, one half of the Maximoff twins. The one, the only Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch. I'm out for now, guys. See you in the next episode. Bye.